So we'll go ahead and call to order our meeting. So call to order the February 4th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we please have a roll call?
Ahern.
Here.
Bathke. Janeezer.
Here.
Heisler. Ward.
Here.
Willer. Yachty.
Here. All right, up first, we'll go ahead and have approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the agenda.
Wonderful, and a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Great. Next up is any public comment. Wonderful. All right, we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the preliminary site plan. We'll start with a staff presentation.
Okay, so this is property located at 1605, 1655, and 1695 North Jones Boulevard. Should be relatively familiar to you. This was recently rezoned from RM8 to RM12 for this for the purpose of constructing an additional residential unit. So they'd like to construct another 12-unit building there, similar to the other ones that are there, and related infrastructure being a parking lot and drainage and things like that. So you can see a zoning map up there reflecting the new zoning, and the future land use map designation is urban medium intensity. So the RM12 is consistent with the urban medium intensity district. The grayed out building in the gray area is what's existing, and the colored area is what would be new. So fits in with the development style that's already there. It was just a density limitation of why they didn't construct it before. Makes total sense to me. And I think as we talk a lot about the need for additional housing units, this is a way to kind of fill in areas that what I would call underdeveloped or have areas that could be developed. So these are good opportunities for additional housing units as we talk more and more about that. Total property is 3.53 acres. This is a shot of the front elevation, so it'd be similar to this existing building. So it'd be a 3-story building. And we did have one finding that it achieved consistency with preliminary site plan code provisions, and staff recommends you accept that listed finding and forward the request to the City Council with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Great. Do we have an applicant presentation?
Good evening. John Marner with MMS Consultants representing the developer. No formal presentation, just to add that to Russ's comments, the intent again is to build one additional 12-plex. There's an existing gazebo or structure that's already on the site. Part of this site plan would also involve relocating that gazebo structure just a little bit further west, and then the enclosed garages as well to ensure that there's enough indoor parking or enclosed parking for one for each of the units on the site. And I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Great. All right, any questions or comments? Seems pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no questions, do we have a motion?
I move that the Planning Commission accept the listing finding and forward the ordinance amendment to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Okay, do we have a second?
Is that,
Did I do that wrong?
that might be for the next one?
Oh.
This was for the preliminary site plan, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were reading the ordinance.
Oh, I was
one from
reading the
ordinance.
second one.
I
Sorry.
just want to make sure I didn't.
I was reading it right from here.
I've got it. If
You have it? Go right ahead.
All right. I'll move that the Planning Commission accept the listed finding for the preliminary site plan to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
The second?
I'll second.
Great. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yachty.
Aye.
Janeezer.
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Ahern.
Aye.
Heisler.
Aye.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda is the public hearing on a zoning ordinance amendment. We'll start with a staff presentation.
Okay. Interestingly, in the months of December of last year and January this year, there were two separate cases that were appealing the administrative decision of the code official, which is me. I am charged with interpreting the zoning code. And there were two separate cases that were appealing a determination that I made. And that's how it's very common. It's just a check and balance, if you will, so that I'm not although I'd love to be the king of the zoning code. There's a check to the Board of Adjustment to make sure that to see or affirm or reverse my decision into what we determined was offense. The Board of Adjustment in both of those cases upheld staff's decision, but I thought it'd be worth taking a look at the zoning code and seeing if there are opportunities to strengthen the code. So to take away any ambiguity or possibility that somebody could interpret a code otherwise. So there were a couple of things that we looked at. Interestingly, we didn't have a definition for offense. So we had to go to a dictionary version of offense and debate really how those provisions applied. And also in that same case, this was the one in December, we debated what a shade structure was. The zoning ordinance references in the accessory building section shade structures. So I thought it would be important to define both of those in the zoning ordinance so we didn't have to refer to a dictionary outside of the code. And the other one was gross floor area. And the only thing I didn't like about that was it says includes, currently it says includes courts, decks, or porches when covered by a roof. And I think it should be a little bit more inclusive, like including but not limited to these types of things if they're under a main roof. Secondly, wanted to talk about prohibited materials for fences. In the second case, this was a large canvas. There were two posts that were about 10 feet high and a canvas stretched in between two of them. And I called that a fence, and the Board of Adjustment agreed with me. But I thought, that's not really consistent with how fences are constructed in the city. And I mean that as a primary material. I see sometimes there's a canvas stretched over like a chain link fence, and I think that's okay. But if it's a primary material or plastic sheets, it's like, I think most of us would say, yeah, no, that wouldn't make any sense. Let's just go ahead and define it and put it in the code. So decided to put that there as well. And lastly, this is just kind of representative, and this was going back to the first case. This person had a detached garage that was 832 square feet, and then constructed a fairly large carport addition that was attached to the detached garage. And the claim was, well, no, this structure isn't a detached garage because it's attached to it. And that was an interesting debate, but we just figured let's just go ahead and clarify that we mean a combination of structures and things like that. So we kind of mirrored that throughout. I don't know, Grant, you were there at both meetings. Do you have anything to add?
Sure was. I don't. I other than to say that I think that Mr. Resnick has done a good job of clarifying definitions that reasonable people, could disagree over the interpretation, and it's better to have clarity when we can. And so I think these changes go well in that direction.
Okay, so circling back, we do have approval standards for zoning text amendments, and that's in 16509. And then so staff recommends the Planning Commission accept that listed finding and forward the request for the ordinance amendment to the City Council with the recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? Great. Any questions or comments? No? Seems like the more clear it is, less questions for later. Save a couple meetings.
Yeah, and I'll never get it perfect. You know, it's really hard to do, and it just when you think you get it, and you got to write it broad enough that it applies to what circumstances you're thinking about. There will always be opportunities for people to appeal, and that's the process, and that's fine. But I'm committed to evolving the zoning ordinance to really be a document that reflects our community standards.
Great. All right, if no other questions, do we have a motion?
I have a motion. I move that the Planning Commission accept the listed finding and forward the ordinance amendment to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Great, and a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, maybe we have a roll call vote, please.
Janezer,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Yadi,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, approval of the previous minutes.
I move to approve the previous minutes.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. We'll move on to item number 7, any old business?
None.
Great. Move on to item number 8, any new business?
We have, let's see, a preliminary plat next month, preliminary site plan. We've been working through some of the details on those. We do have 2 rezonings for next month, so I will send out, should get posted on the city's website, notice about the Good Neighbor meeting, and I'll also send it to you just so you know about it. So it should be busy next month.
Okay, great. If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, meeting adjourned.